What's up YouTube, Dal here from Zephyr, and today I am bringing you another update post Supreme Darkness. Today is the turn of Crystrons. That's right, Crystrons have been getting a lot of hype lately, and unfortunately, some of the older cards have spiked in price. The hopes, and fingers crossed, is that those particular type of cards will be reprinted in the upcoming OTS, and then make them a little bit cheaper. The deck is still relatively cheap and budget in comparison to the top main meta decks, and this deck can definitely perform. I'm going to take you through the profile, and then at the end of the video I'll show you a very basic combo. Another thing that I really like about the Crystron version is that the fact of the matter is you can play this with loads of different supporting engines, because technically it doesn't need to use its normal summon, so you can use Wolf's version and actually use the Adventure package. There's also another version where you can utilise the Horus package, and then of course you do have loads of different options that you can use with Azaminas as well. The one thing you need to remember about certain Crystrons is when you activate their effects, some of them will lock you into machines, and some of them will lock you into machine synchros from the extra deck for the rest of the turn, so that's something you do need to keep in mind depending on what variant you are playing. But the idea is the supporting engines that you are utilising in the deck either get utilised as fodder for synchro climbing, or they're going to be utilised to make a negate before you start moving into your Crystron plays. The Crystron combo is absolutely insane and very, very powerful, but it is susceptible to quite a few hand traps. It has ways to play around the Biru, and it is one of them decks that right now, unless you know exactly what it does, you could end up faltering to it if you don't know what it plays like and everything else and the choke points on top of that. So with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more upcoming content. So diving headfirst into the profile, we're starting off with two of the Tristaros. Now this is the brand new card. Now, arguably and honestly, you should probably be playing this at free. I currently only own 2 copies, which is why I've adapted the list to only be able to play 2. It still works, because more times than not you want to access this from the deck, but this can be one of your more important normal summons, because the Crystrons really get effects off when they're in the graveyard, so being able to normal summon this card and then linking it off will help you out, which is why playing free is not an issue, and it's definitely something I'll be looking forward to in order to get the 3rd copy. And the card that I will cut out once I get the 3rd copy is the Crystron Rosenix, which you don't need to be playing at all, but this is one of the ones that I've got a bit of space, I thought I'd put it in there, or this list is a 42 card list, you can cut it out completely and just run with 2. So the reason that the Tristaros is so good is that when your opponent activates a card or effect, you get a quick effect to special summon a synchro monster from your deck, except itself. Then immediately after the effect resolves, you synchro summon a machine synchro monster using monsters you control, including this monster. You can banish this card from the graveyard to destroy a synchro monster you control, and if you do, you special summon 2 Crystron monsters from your deck, but you can't special summon from the extra deck for the rest of the turn except machines, which is absolutely fine. The card is cracked. The fact you can use both effects, which is absolutely insane, once per turn, but the idea is it allows you to kind of bring back from the graveyard, it allows you to pop, it allows you to summon from the deck, it just gives you so much utility, and it's a brand new tuner for the deck, because the only other tuner that the deck naturally has that you're going to want to play is the one Citri, and this is the one card that is a little bit more expensive as it's only had a single print in an ultra rare, so that's the one that's going to cost a little bit, but the hopes are that this gets reprinted in an OTS as a common or a super, and it just makes life so much easier. So the Citri is during your opponent's main phase or battle phase, you target a non-tuner monster in your graveyard, special summon it, but its effects are negated if any. And if you do, immediately after this effect resolves, you synchro summon a machine type synchro monster using only that monster and this card. This is a quick effect. These synchro materials are banished instead of being sent to the graveyard. You can only use this effect once per turn, so obviously it's a quick effect to synchro during your opponent's turn only, whereas the Tristaros is obviously a little bit more ideal for your turn, which is why you only need to play one of the Citri. And then your most ideal summon, and I'm actually hoping that this is in OTS, but as like a super upgrade would be really cool, is the Smygar. Now Smygar, obviously, what I love about these, I love about the artworks is, even though they're technically not, they remind me of Power Rangers. For the pure fact that this look like the White Tiger, and then when they get into their extra deck monsters, it looks like they're kind of like evolved. So, like machine morphed. So I do like the idea behind all these. So like this is like your Gold Ranger, you got like a Blue Ranger, and then of course you've got the machines themselves, like the Zords. That's kind of what I would like to look at the Crystrons like. I know that's maybe not the fact, but they still look really kind of cool. Anyway, you can target one face-up card you control. You can't special summon monsters from the extra deck for the rest of the turn except machine-type synchro monsters. Also, destroy that card, and if you do, you special summon a Crystron tuner from your deck. You can banish this card from the graveyard to add a Crystron spell or trap from the deck to the hand. You can only use one effect per turn. Now, 99.99999% of the time, you're going to be using the 2nd effect to banish it from the graveyard, which is why you want to play cards that let you get these cards out of your hand. It's why you also play the engine and stuff like the Cherubini, because Cherubini can send this directly from deck to the grave. When we get to Cherubini, I'll talk about it a little bit more, but the idea about Cherubini is it's so good in the fact that if you do play the adventure package, which is what Wolf was saying, is that the idea is that if you play the adventure package, you then have the ability when you go through Cherubini to either get you into Crystron or you get into adventure. So if you've already opened up engine for Crystron, you move from there. And the best thing about this is you also get to utilize the brand new Clockwork Knight. And this is where this can become your normal summon. Is you normal summon this, you link it off into the Clockwork Knight, and then you banish it from the graveyard and get your spell and trap. Now the spell and traps you're going to want to search, and I'm going to show you them side by side so you know exactly what your targets are off the back of the Smyger, is going to be the brand new and incredibly insane Crystron Inclusion. And the reason this one is so good is when this card is activated, you add a Crystron card from the deck to the hand, except itself. So you're probably going to be going to, more times than not, the Self Door, which is the other brand new card. This one lets you pop a Crystron card you control to destroy it and special summon it. It does stop you special summon from the edge deck for the rest of the turn except machines, which is absolutely fine. And if it's normal or special, you send up to 2 Crystron cards with different names from the deck to the graveyard, except itself. And then again, when you'll see in the combo, you'll see like more of this in action. The idea is the card you are sending is then utilizing more plays to extend you for searches. It also gives you access to the Smyger, but if you've already gone through the Smyger to get to your inclusion, it adapts a little bit. If that wasn't enough as well, the first time each Crystron monster you control would be destroyed by battle each turn it is not destroyed, you get to banish this card from the graveyard to target a Crystron monster in your graveyard and special summon it. You can only use this effect once per turn, and you can only activate 1 inclusion per turn. So obviously you get to use both effects, but you'll only be able to activate one, and you'll only be able to banish the graveyard one as well. The trap you're going to want to search out is obviously the brand new Crystron Cluster. So Crystron's cards you control cannot be banished, which is great by your opponent's card effects, because it means Malice is going to cause them. It's going to cause Malice a bit of an issue when they're trying to banish your cards. You get to target a face-up card on the field, or you can target 2 if you control a Crystron Synchron monster. Shuffle a Crystron card from your graveyard or banishment into the deck, except itself, and if you do, destroy the targeted cards. You can only use this effect once per turn, and obviously the idea behind that is it allows you to recycle stuff like your Citri, or obviously, of course, your Tristaros as well. So this deck's pretty much got everything. It's got the recyclability, it's got spell and traps that can interact, it's got cards that can work through the graveyard. It doesn't rely on a normal summon in the sense of using its effects, so then that's why the adventure package opens up, and it works out really, really nicely. Another one of the old cards, which unfortunately has gone up in price, these are like £8 a copy now here in the UK, but that is playing triple Sulfnir. So this one is, if this card is in your hand or graveyard, you get to discard a Crystron card except itself to special summon this card in defense position. Then you destroy it 1 card you control. If this card on the field is destroyed by battle or card effect, you get to special summon a Crystron monster from your deck in defense. You can only use each effect once per turn. So obviously the idea is that when you're being able to utilize your Tristaros, which this one lets you, let me get it, give the exact one, banish it from the graveyard, destroy a Synchro monster you control, and if you do special summon 2 Crystrons from the deck, that's how you get to bring back the Sulfnir, and then Sulfnir's on the board, and you kind of build off the back of that. And then obviously 2 Sulfadors, pretty much already talked about this one, so on the normal or special, so if it's in the hand of the graveyard, sorry, you get to target a Crystron card you control, destroy it, and if you do, special summon it. Lock yourself out of the extra deck except machines. And then if it's normal or special, you get to send 2 Crystrons with different names from the deck to the grave. Now, it's 2 Crystron cards, so if you wanted to, you could also send the inclusion. So it's always great that these have the graveyard effects. Another one of the older cards is the Parasite Turtle. So you target 1 face-up card you control. You can't special from the extra deck for the rest of the turn. I love the fact that it's all for the rest of the turn, because if it was for the entire turn, then it would stop a load of your engines being able to be utilized. Except machine-type synchros. So that's the one big thing you've got to keep an eye on. Is some of them say you can't go from the extra deck except machines, which is fine, because then that starts giving you access to like Clockwork Knight and everything else. And then some of them start saying machine synchros. So then that really kind of narrows down what you then have access to. So you need to make sure you do all of your link plays first, which is why Cherubini is your go-to as your first card you summon, and then you build off the back of that. So on top of that is one, except machine-type synchro monsters, also destroy that card, and if you do, special summon a Crystron tuner from the deck. You can banish this card from the graveyard to special summon a Crystron monster from your hand. You can only use 1 effect per turn. So obviously the olders are all 1 effect per turn, and the new ones are both effects, but once per turn. And again, that's when you start utilizing one or the other. Chances are you're probably going to be utilizing the graveyard one a little bit more. And then, of course, we've got the Rosenix. Like I said, this one is, you don't play it at all. Like, you can very easily cut this out. I just wanted to trial it out because I'm missing that 3rd Tristaros. But the idea behind this one is it lets you target a face-up card you control. You can't special from the extra deck for the rest of the turn except machine types. You destroy that card, and if you do, special summon a Crystron tune-up from your deck. You banish this card from the graveyard to special summon a Crystron token, which is a machine level 1, but it cannot be tributed, but you can only use 1 effect per turn. I think it would probably get utilized a lot more if you could use both effects, but the idea is you're either spawning another level 1, which might help you adapt some of your synchro plays, or you're getting a level 4 non-tune to the board. Again, like I said, completely cuttable. And then, of course, you've got the first Vyvern. So you can target a face-up card you control. You can't special from the HDA except for the machine-type synchros for the rest of the turn. Destroy that card, and if you do, special summon a Crystron tuner from the deck. You get to banish this card from the graveyard to add a Crystron monster from the deck to the hand, except itself. You can only use one effect per turn. So again, older card. This one came out in Invasion Venom. So there's loads of different old ones. You got Raging Tempest, I believe was the Sulfenir. Invasion Venom, and Invasion Venom. So okay, so now moving on to the non-Crystron cards. So I like to play 2 Tidal. I think a lot of people like to play Tidal in the deck for the pure fact that if it's in the hand or graveyard, you banish a total of 2 waters, which is fine because you get to recycle your Crystrons, and it just gives you the ability, or a Dragon Monster, from the hand and or graveyard, except this card to special on this card, so it gives you a nice level 7 on the board that can then be utilised for synchro plays, and it's a water, so you don't really worry about locking yourself into anything. During the end phase of the turn, obviously you get to bring this back. So if this card was special summoned, you return it to the hand. You get to discard this card and 1 water monster to send a monster from the deck to the graveyard. If banished, you get to add a water dragon from the deck to the hand. You can only use 1 tidal effect per turn. So the idea is this can just become a foolish burial to get you, and this is what I keep referring back to, is the card you're going to want to get to your graveyard is going to be your Smyger. So you want to be as consistent as possible to get that card to the graveyard, because then that's when it's going to lead you to Incursion. Incursion then leads you to the Sulfenir, and then obviously you build off the back of that. Then the engine that everyone is playing, and I think it would be crazy not to play this, is the Terratop engine. So triple Terratop, 1 tuck into a Borg. And the idea behind this is if you open up Terratop, this either gives you a negate to protect from the Biru, Ash Blossom, or a particular monster effect hand trap, or you go straight into the Cherubini. The Cherubini then leads you into the Smyger, and as I've mentioned previously, if you already have access to the Smyger, then what you're going to do is you're going to go Terratop, and then I would personally, right now, trial out the Bamboozle and Gossip Shadow, because once you make this, because if you make this before you lock yourself into machines, this one can then protect you from the beer and everything else, and it gives you a bit more. In the other side, if you are going to be playing the adventure package, you'd still go into Cherubini. Cherubini would send Water Enchantress, and then you go Water Enchantress, Banish, and go off from there. The idea is, if you don't go down the Cherubini route and you do choose to go down the Gossip Shadow route, it lets you play around a little bit more hand traps, because then that means you don't need to play around Droll. Because at the end of the day, if you go Cherubini, send Water Enchantress get you the token, obviously get you the Right of Armoricia to get you the token, and they Droll you, at that point you're not going to be able to really build your negate, whereas this just going straight into Gossip Shadow gives you that negate. And then for the hand traps of selection, I went with triple Imperm, triple Ash, double Valar, and double Bestial. Obviously, you adapt this to as you see fit. These can very easily be Nibirus, they could be Ghost Spells, they could be... The one thing that I would want to put in here, but it kind of clashes with the Terratop, and the Terratop is actually really important for the deck, is the Dominus Impulse. But I just really, really like that card. I think it's like one of the best cards we've had for a long, long time. Not as a generic option, but I like that style of hand trap, and I just like what it does. It's basically a trap version of Ash, which I really do like. But then you'd have to cut the Terratop engine, and I think the Terratop engine is too important, which is why the hand trap lineup is like this. Now, you can play more hand traps, but what I've decided to play is something that helps the deck go second a little bit more, but can also be balanced for going first. So I decided to go with Book of Eclipse. Now, this is a bit of a grey area right now, and it's something that I might be taking out. But the idea is that I've been playing this in one of my other decks, and it just works out so well in the Ryziel matchup. In the Ryziel matchup, it's very difficult to stop the detonator. And what I mean by that is, yes, of course, you can imperm the detonator, but then if they've got cross, they're still going to be able to negate. Then on the top of that as well is if they have duo drive with material and you were to Book of Moon, for example, the detonator, they still have an XYZ on the board. If they're playing the Fiendsmith engine, usually their end board could be something like a Triple D High Wave King Caesar, plus a detonator, plus a duo drive. So then you still need to deal with 2, and you need to open up 2 Book of Moons. Whereas the idea behind Book of Eclipse is if I top deck it going second, I activate Book of Eclipse, flip everything face down, I'm good to rock and roll. You can still set it going first. Yes, of course, it's a little bit more shaky because you don't want to be putting your synchros face down, but the idea is you would utilize all of your effects first, and if they're still able to keep going and going and going and going, you Book of Eclipse them. Or you Book of Eclipse them at a point where you feel they can't go any further. Even losing your own monsters face down, you go, well, it's a sacrifice worth taking. You flip all of them face down, and then straight away they're like, I can't go any further past. Yes, they flip up and draw cards, but at the end of the day, by the time they flip up and they draw those cards need to be specific hand traps in the end phase. And then if you don't need to combo anymore because you've already got a board built and you're flipping them all face up anyway, you then flip them to attack, and you complete the OTK. So there's loads of different things to kind of keep in mind with this card. It's just one of the ones that has been working incredibly well for me, which is why I'm main decking it. But it might be one of the ones that when it doesn't start working well for you, or if it doesn't work for you in general, you can take it out. And then that's where something that will be a little bit more specific or a little bit more effective for you in your personal playstyle will then come into effect. The other card that I'm playing is Triple Forbidden Droplet. Like, this deck, again, is not the greatest at going second. Like, in breaking boards and stuff, like, you are relying on your hand traps. Like, your general engine itself is not there to naturally break boards as you're building going second, because you have to go through a lot of things and a lot of effects that your opponent is probably going to be interacting with, and you want to give them the least amount on the board as possible. So being able to play something like Forbidden Droplet, which also helps the deck out by getting stuff like hard opening Smigers to the graveyard, gives you double effects off the back of everything you need to, because you'll negate, you'll send, and then of course you'll be able to have like Smigers graveyard effect or anything else in between. The last two cards is Foolish Burial and Call by the Grave. You do have a lot of space in here for non-engines. You can very easily put in a Crossout Designator if you wanted to. The idea is that if you're starting to look down different engines, so like the Azaminas, the Horus, or the Adventure, you start putting the deck above 40. Like I said, this is a 42 card deck, but the Rosenix can come out to make it a 41, and then it's up to you what you want to cut. You could just cut the Bestials completely and keep the Rosenix in. It is up to you what you adapt. The idea is that when you're building a deck like this, you kind of want to make it into your own personal playstyle, which is why I quite like the Adventure package. And when you put the Adventure package in, you kind of can make it a 50 card deck. Because the deck itself has a lot of ways to get to your Smiger and a lot of ways to get to engines and Teratopses and Cherubinis and Adventure package and everything else like that, there's not a big issue playing it at 50. Your consistency is still going to be there, it's still going to be effective, and it gives you a lot to kind of utilise. But for now, I thought I'd stick with a relatively close to 40 card deck and keep it very simple of just Crystrons, and then it's up to you if you want to start adapting it and adding additional engines in. Moving into the extra deck, so we'll go for the Synchros first. So for the Synchros, we've got the one Crystron Amtrix. So this one is the level 5. If it is Synchro summoned, you get to change all face-up special monsters your opponent controls to defense. And if this Synchro summon card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you get to target a Crystron monster in your graveyard, except a Synchro monster, and special summon it. And then we've got two of the brand new, now, Ellie Skeletus, I would like to think. So this one is your level 7. So again, one tuner, one non-tuner, one tuner, one non-tuner. All monsters your opponent controls lose 500 attack and defense. You can only use each of the following effects once per turn. If this card is Synchro summoned, you get to add a Crystron card from the graveyard or banishment to the hand. If it is Synchro summoned, is destroyed by battle or card effect, you get to special summon a Crystron monster from your grave or banishment. And obviously the idea is you're going to Synchro climb into this, you then start popping it with your Tritanus and everything else, get rid of it, and then it can float back with all of your other card effects. The other card that has rocketed in price is the Quandrax. So the Quandrax requires 2 or more tuners and then 1 or more non-tuner. If it is Synchro summoned, you get to target monsters your opponent controls and or in their graveyard up to the number of Synchro materials used for the Synchro summon of this card, banish them. If this Synchro summon card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you get to target a banished monster, except this card, and special summon it to your field. Now obviously the idea is that this is your board breaker. You kind of want to be utilising it during your opponent's turn. Obviously going second, this is the one you want to go to clear stuff off. But again, you have to go through a lot of different hoops to get to it going second, whereas you're better off building up this board that during your opponent's turn you go, cool, quick effect, make this, and then go whoosh, and clear everything off. We're then playing the one Navy Dragon Mech. So this is a level 9 Synchro. It kind of goes off the back of the Vermilion Dragon Mech, so relatively similar, water, fire. You can see that these are all machines right now, so you don't really worry about most of the locks. So if it's special summoned, you get to target face-up cards your opponent controls up to the number of tuners in your graveyard, negate their effects for until the end turn, and if this Synchro summon card is destroyed by card effect and sent to the graveyard, target a tuner in your graveyard and add it to the hand. Now what you need to remember is a lot of times you are trying to pop your own Synchro, so being able to utilise an effect like that is absolutely fine. The Vermilion Dragon Mech just gives you the ability to banish a tuner from your hand, field, or graveyard, target a card in the field, destroy it. And then, if this is destroyed by card effect and sent to the graveyard, you target one of your banished tuners and add it back to the hand. So both of them share the exact same effect, which is why they're pretty similar. FA Dawn Dragster, pretty standard on that one. Samurai Destroyer. Now, obviously, this had a bit of a peak in Tenpai format, but it's less so the first effect, but more so the second effect that you're going to want to use on this one. So if this face-up card in its owner's control leaves the field because of an opponent's card effect, you target a machine monster in your graveyard and special summon it. So this is the way that you play around Nibiru, because there's times where your opponent might try and Nibiru you at certain interactions, and there's times where you can use quick effects to bring back Synchro, and then this gets Nibiru'd off. But when it gets Nibiru'd off, it then uses effect to bring a machine back from the graveyard. So you just go, okay, cool, I'm going to continue to build. So this one is actually insane in this particular type of deck, and you'll see that in the combo at the end. The last machine is the one Centurion Lagita. So this one is your monsters with 2,000 or less attack cannot be destroyed by battle. Great success. You can only use each of the following effects once per turn. If it is special summoned, you draw a card, and then you can destroy the monsters your opponent controls with the highest attack, your choice if tied. During the end phase, you get to place a non-Synchro Centurion monster from your hand or graveyard into your spell and trap as a face-up continuous, which you're not going to do. But if you don't want to be playing this, another one that I do like to play just for the lols is your Super Heavy Samurai Brave Yugioh. But the idea is it's a 4K defender that can attack in defense, and then if you have less, basically you draw until you have 3 cards in your hand when your opponent activates an effect. So I quite liked it as like a funny option. For the Link monsters, you got your Clockwork Knight, you got your standard SP Little Knight. If you are worried about locking yourself in the machines, you can cut this out if you want to. The other card you can kind of look into will be your Crystron Phoenix, which is better for spells and trap decks. And then of course your high speed Roy Chambara is just your aggressive level 5 synchro. And then of course you've got your Cherubini. This is like insanely important. Like I said, the adventure package makes this even more reliant, but because of this one, what I quite like the option of is if I don't see a Smygar, I go Cherubini. If I do see Smygar, I go for the Bamboozle and Gossip Shadow. And a lot of people are not going to expect this, and it does mean that my opponent needs to use 2 hand traps in order to stop this. Yes, of course, they draw a card, but so do you. And the idea is you're basically just replacing an effect, and then after that, it can become Link fodder. And then the last machines that we play is the Cyber Dragon Nova into Infinity. Of course, you can play a Nova target. You can play something like Macabre. You can also play any of like the machines that this can spawn out. The machine, especially a machine type fusion monster from the extra deck. But honestly, this is if this card in your possession is sent to the graveyard by an opponent's card effect. You get to special one out that machine, which the idea one is that you're going for Macabre because then it gives you that negate depending on what you have in hand. Absolutely fine, you can very easily put that in there. I just didn't want to rely on my opponent getting rid of this. Now, more times than not, the reason that the Samurai Destroyer worked is because no matter when they Nibiru, you can control to bring it out onto the board with the particular type of setup. Whereas you can't really, like, if you put Nova on the board, your opponent, it's very rare that your opponent's going to Nibiru you. They might take that risk and go, Nibiru you here, and you don't have the target. And you go, yeah, cool, well, I'm now a fool for not playing the target. Because your next card will be Infinity. However, more times than not, if you make Nova, they might be like, if I Nibiru, they're just going to get Macabre, I'm not going to do it, kind of thing. So you kind of put them in a catch-22. Like, you're kind of already playing mind games in there without playing the target. You can very easily play the target. I'm not saying if you play it, that's wrong. I'm just saying, for me, I decided not to go on that risk and reward style, but you can very easily do so. It's up to you. I just quite like a more guarantee by going into a Gossip Shadow. But entirely up to you. You have the flexibility. Really is your choice. So that's it for the entire main deck. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the combo. If you are curious about what a side deck looks like, you'd be looking at something like... hello. I would personally be looking at something like Gravity Collapse. I think that's a great card for a Synchro style deck because it's basically a, deck, a counter trap that skips your opponent's entire turn when they summon by tributing off one of your Synchro monsters. You've then, of course, got stuff like Solemn Strikes. You'd be putting Artifact Lanciers in. You'd be putting D-Barriers in. You can put in Triple Tactics Thrust if you have them. You've got Fluoroses if you have them. You can put in Nibiru's if you have them. Cosmic Cyclones. You've got loads of different options. You just adapt it to your environment and what you're taking it to. Obviously, if there's 0 Malice, you won't play Lancer. If there's all Malice, you'll play Lancer and you'll probably take out Book of Eclipse from the main deck and put the Lanciers in the main deck. So you've got that flexibility to work with. So that's it for the entire profile. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the very basic combo to kind of get you going, and then you can go from there. So I'll be back in a second. I'm going to show you the very basic 1-card combo that lets you play through Nibiru. Now this exact combo can be played in loads of different ways. It can set yourself up with the ability to go into a Quandrax during your opponent's turn alongside a Cyber Dragon Infinity, or it can be a Cyber Dragon Infinity plus the trap card and the ability to get into an Amtrix during your opponent's turn to shift all of your opponent's monsters to defense. It is up to you on how you want to adapt this combo, and I'm going to show you those in a dedicated video alongside stuff like the Speedroid Terratop combo and what happens if you hard open up the inclusion, just so I can go in as much depth as possible and show you those as well. So you're going to start off by normal summoning the Smygar. You're going to link this off and go into the Clockwork Knight. You're then going to be able to banish the Smygar from the graveyard to grab you the inclusion. Activate the inclusion to grab you the Sulfador. Use Sulfador's effect, target the inclusion, destroying this and summoning itself down. You now send 2 Crystron monsters with different names from the deck to the graveyard. In this particular version, this is the combo that if it doesn't get Nibiru'd will end on the Quandrax, and you send yourself with the First Vivant and the Sulfanir. In the other version, if you want to get the trap card, you actually end up sending your Tristanos and you send the trap card itself. It does play around Nib a little bit less and the end board won't be as effective at least getting an Omni-Negate, but it still gives you a bit more to play around. So by sending these 2 to the graveyard, what you can do is you can use the First Vivant's effect to banish it to grab you the Paris Tortoise, and then you're going to be able to use the effect of the Sulfanir to discard the Tortoise. Now the reason you go for the Tortoise instead is the idea is that it allows you to banish it from the graveyard to special a Crystron from the hand. So if you do hard open up any other Crystron in the 4 remaining cards in your hand, you can actually use this as an additional extender post Nibiru as well to give you a little bit more. So we're currently on 4 summons. We're obviously going to resolve the Sulfanir's effect, destroying itself, and this will then allow you to special a Crystron from the deck, which of course will be the Tristanos. Now this is officially our 5th summon, so at this point our opponent can Nibiru you, and if they're a little bit hot on the trigger and they want to drop the Nibiru on you right now to give you a fat token, you go, okay, that's fine. Activate the Tristanos, summon out a level 5 Crystron from the deck, and then instantly Synchro Summon, going into Samurai Destroyer. Then you resolve the Nibiru, destroying all of these, giving you a fat Nibiru token. Now, as it currently stands, the fat Nibiru token itself will have a defense of 3650 and an attack of pretty decent of nearly 4,000, I think 5,000 exactly. But what you're going to be able to do here is you're going to be able to trigger the second effect of the Samurai Destroyer, that if this face-up card in its owner's control leaves the field because of an opponent's card effect, which it did, you get to target a machine monster in the graveyard and special summon it. So you want to make sure you target one of your level 5, whether it be the Sulfador or the Sulfaneer. It doesn't make any difference which one, and you summon one back to the board. You then get the other one back from the graveyard by banishing the inclusion to bring back the Sulfador, and that's the one big difference between this and the trap card version, is you would use the inclusion a little bit earlier on in the combo, so you don't really have this to give you this ability to come back. Then overlay both of these into a Nova and then into an Infinity. Now, if they were to put the token in attack because maybe they have a way, or they're looking at a way of reducing its attack or stealing it or anything like that, you can just go Infinity and absorb it, and then it will disappear, which means you don't have that kind of option floating over them for them to use against you. But more times than not, they're probably going to put it in defense, as it'll be a little bit weaker than attack. Now, you're still going to have your 4 more cards here. You're still going to have the Tortoise in the graveyard. And like I said, this combo can adapt different ways depending on which route you want to take it. But the idea is I wanted to show you what happens if you do get directly nibbed at the possible time. Now, at the point where they did nib you, if they chose not to nib you, you then work your way into your Skeletos, and then you can start working your plays through that way as well, regaining a bit more resource, and you'd still have the inclusion in the graveyard as well, so you still maintain that ability. And the card you add back from the off the back of the Skeletos can then be summoned off of the back of the Tortoise, so you've got loads of different options there as well. So that's it for the entire profile and the combo as well. This is just the baseline to show you, and I thought I'd show you one of the ideal outcomes if they do have a hand trap on you, of what you can get to. Of course, it can adapt in many different ways, which I'll show you in the dedicated video, just so I can show you those in as much depth as possible, and without making this video like a huge 30-minute plus video. I think it's kind of nice to give you it in more bite-sized options. So that's it for the profile. If you do have any questions at all, by all means, please put in the comments down below. I will be more than happy to answer them for you. For now, stay safe, and of course, happy dueling.